Hey everyone, before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more exciting content. Imagine this. A quiet, unassuming woman in a simple black dress walks up to the guarded gates of Arlington National Cemetery on a crisp autumn morning, clutching nothing but a single white rose and a faded photograph. Security stops her cold. No invitation, no clearance, no name on the list for the most exclusive military funeral of the year. As hundreds of generals, admirals, and dignitaries look on, they tell her to leave, until the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a battle-hardened four-star general, spots her from the front row, freezes, and orders the entire ceremony halted with one raised hand. What this humble woman did 50 years ago in the jungles of Vietnam will leave every soldier in America speechless and bring a nation to its feet. If you love your mom and dad, the quiet heroes who sacrificed everything for this country without ever asking for glory, smash that subscribe button right now, hit the bell, drop a like, and show this incredible woman the respect she never got. Until today. The morning mist hung low over Arlington National Cemetery like a shroud woven from the breaths of a million fallen heroes. Rows upon rows of white headstones stood at perfect attention, guardians of stories that most Americans would never hear. On this November day in 2025, Section 60 was closed to the public, transformed into a fortress of black limousines, dress blues, and gold braid. The funeral of General Harold J. Richardson, four-star legend, former commander of U.S. forces in the Pacific, architect of victories most people only read about in classified briefings, was about to begin. Television cameras from every major network lined the perimeter, but inside the rope line, only the elite were allowed. The Secretary of Defense, 3 former presidents, every living member of the Joint Chiefs, and more stars on collars than in the night sky over Baghdad. At precisely 0958 hours, a lone figure approached the outer checkpoint on foot. No driver, no entourage, no press badge. Just Eleanor Hayes, 78 years old, silver hair pulled into a simple bun, wearing a plain black dress that looked like it came from a department store clearance rack 20 years ago. In her gloved hands, she carried a single white rose and a yellowed photograph in a cheap drugstore frame. Her steps were slow but determined, the kind of walk that had carried her through rice paddies under monsoon rain and across minefields lit only by burning villages. Sergeant First Class Marcus Thompson, gate security for the day, held up a meaty hand. "Ma'am, this area is restricted. Invitation only." His partner, Specialist Ramirez, already had his hand on the radio. Eleanor stopped, her pale blue eyes meeting his without flinching. "I don't have an invitation, son, but I need to say goodbye to Harry." Thompson glanced at the list on his tablet. 600 names, every one of them a who's who of American power. Hayes wasn't on it. Not Eleanor, not E. Not any variation. "I'm sorry, ma'am. No exceptions." Even the president's own staff had to be cleared weeks ago. Behind them, the honor guard was already forming up. The caisson carrying General Richardson's flag-draped casket rolled slowly forward, pulled by 6 perfectly matched black horses. The army band struck up a mournful hymn. Eleanor took one step closer. "Young man, I held that man in my arms when he was 22 years old and bleeding out in a ditch outside Kisan. I carried him 3 miles through Charlie's backyard while calling in airstrikes with one hand and keeping pressure on his femoral artery with the other. If anyone belongs here today, it's me." Ramirez snorted. "Lady, everyone's got a story. Move along before we have to escort you." The words stung more than Eleanor let show. She had heard worse, much worse, from men in Saigon bars who called her just a nurse, right up until the moment she saved their lives. But today, of all days, the dismissal cut deep. She opened her mouth to speak again when a voice like rolling thunder cut across the checkpoint. "Hold!" Every head turned. Striding from the VIP seating area came General Alexander Holloway, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff himself, for silver stars gleaming on each shoulder. The ceremony froze mid-note. The band stopped playing. Even the horses seemed to pause. Holloway's face, usually carved from granite on CNN briefings, was pale beneath his cover. He marched straight to Eleanor, ignoring the salutes snapping around him, and came to perfect attention 10 feet away. Then, in a movement that would be replayed on every news channel for weeks, The highest-ranking officer in the United States military raised his hand in the crispest salute anyone had ever seen. Eleanor returned it automatically, muscle memory from a lifetime ago. The white rose trembled in her other hand. "Captain Hayes," General Holloway said, voice carrying across the silent cemetery. "It's an honor, ma'am." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. "Captain? This elderly woman in the discount dress?" Thompson's tablet slipped from his fingers and clattered to the pavement. Holloway lowered his salute but didn't break eye contact. "Gentlemen," he addressed the stunned security team, "you just tried to block the most decorated intelligence officer never to appear on any public honor roll. Captain Eleanor Margaret Hayes, CIA Special Activities Division, Vietnam era. 17 confirmed solo infiltrations of North Vietnamese High Command. Personal savior of over 400 American lives, including the man we're burying today. Her file is so classified that even I only got read in last year when the president asked me to find her." He turned back to Eleanor, and for the first time in public, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs looked close to tears. "Ma'am, the ceremony doesn't start until you're in your seat. And your seat is front row center, where General Richardson requested you sit if you ever came." Eleanor's voice was barely above a whisper. "He kept his promise. Always, ma'am. He never stopped looking for you." As camera phones rose like periscopes across the cemetery, General Holloway offered his arm. Eleanor took it, and together they walked the long green mile to the graveside while the entire military establishment watched in stunned silence. But that was only the beginning of the revelations that would shake the nation. 58 years earlier, in the steaming heat of 1967, a 20-year-old nursing student from Des Moines, Iowa, named Eleanor Hayes had answered a different kind of call. The CIA recruiter who visited her university didn't talk about glory. He talked about duty, about a program so secret it didn't have a name, only a code. Operation Night Angel. They needed women who could pass as civilians, who spoke French from their Cajun grandmothers, who could stitch arteries and break necks with equal skill. Eleanor signed without telling her parents. 3 months later she was in Laos, running agents across the Ho Chi Minh Trail disguised as a Catholic Relief Services nurse. Her first meeting with 2nd Lieutenant Harry Richardson happened by pure chance or fate on a muddy airstrip near the DMZ. Harry's platoon had been ambushed. Only 4 men walked out. Harry wasn't one of them until Eleanor dragged him from a burning helicopter, applied a tourniquet made from her own bra strap, and carried him piggyback through 12 hours of darkness while NVA patrols swept the area. She whispered baseball scores and Iowa cornfield memories to keep him conscious. When they finally reached friendly lines, Harry tried to salute her with his one good arm. She kissed his forehead instead and disappeared into the jungle before he could even ask her last name. They would cross paths 16 more times over the next 4 years, always by accident, always when one of them was minutes from death. Harry rose through the ranks on battlefield commissions. Eleanor sank deeper into the shadows, becoming the ghost who could walk into Hanoi wearing an AO dye and walk out with Politburo meeting notes tucked in her medical bag. She saved Harry twice more, once extracting him from a POW camp disguised as a Red Cross inspector, once talking a trigger-happy Marine sentry out of shooting him during a friendly fire incident in the A Shau Valley. Their last mission together was supposed to be routine. Insert near the Cambodian border, confirm coordinates for arc light strikes, exfil by chopper. But the NVA had been waiting. The team was betrayed by a double agent none of them suspected, Captain Daniel Whitmore, Harry's own executive officer, who had been turned during a previous capture. Whitmore fed the coordinates to the enemy, then shot the radio operator in the back to cover his tracks. In the chaos that followed, Eleanor watched Harry take 3 rounds shielding a wounded Montagnard scout. She returned fire, killed Whitmore with a single shot to the temple, then carried Harry's unconscious body through a wall of tracers while calling in the very B-52 strike that would bury their pursuers under a mountain of high explosive. When the dust settled, only 2 Americans walked out, Eleanor and Harry. The official report listed all others Kia. The mission a tragic failure due to enemy action. Eleanor's role was erased completely. She became a ghost even to the agency that employed her. Harry spent a year in military hospitals, earned his first star before age 40, and spent the rest of his life trying to find the woman who saved him. He pulled every string, called in every favor, even confronted CIA directors who stonewalled him with plausible deniability. All he had was a first name, Ellie, and a promise she'd made while stitching his chest in a candlelit hooch. "If we make it out of this war, Harry Richardson, you owe me a dance at your promotion to general." But Eleanor never wanted to be found. The things she'd done in the shadows, the interrogations, the necessary killings, the villages she'd marked for destruction to save battalions, ate at her soul. When the program shut down in 1973, she vanished. Took a bus to Montana, married a quiet rancher who never asked about the nightmares, raised 2 children who thought their mother had simply been an army nurse. Her medals, if they even existed, were locked in a vault she would never open. She became Ellie Hayes, baker of apple pies for church fundraisers, the lady who knitted blankets for veterans' hospitals but never attended the ceremonies. Harry's letters found her anyway, dozens of them over the decades, forwarded by old contacts who still owed her their lives. She read every one, cried over every one, but never answered. Some debts, she believed, were too large to repay with mere words. Until the morning she saw his obituary. General Harold J. Richardson, 80, died peacefully at Walter Reed after a brief illness. The notice mentioned a full honors funeral at Arlington and, in the final paragraph, a personal request. "If Night Angel is out there, if you're reading this, Ellie, please come. Front row is yours. I still owe you that dance." She bought a bus ticket that same day. Now, as General Holloway escorted her to the graveside, the twists kept coming. The Secretary of Defense rose to speak first, voice cracking as he revealed that President Ramirez had just signed a classified executive order declassifying portions of Operation Night Angel. Effective immediately, Captain Eleanor M. Hayes was to be awarded the Medal of Honor, the first living woman in history to receive it for actions in Vietnam. The citation would remain partially redacted, but enough would be released to silence forever the doubters who claimed women hadn't fought on the front lines. Then came the second shock. From the back of the gathering, a man in a colonel's uniform pushed forward, gray-haired, limping, eyes burning with something between rage and shame. Colonel Daniel Whitmore, Jr., son of the traitor Eleanor, had killed 57 years ago. For decades, the Whitmore family had been quietly rehabilitated, the father's treason buried under layers of forgery and threats. Young Daniel had built a respectable career on his father's heroic memory, until declassified files reached his desk that morning. He dropped to his knees in front of Eleanor as cameras rolled. "My father tried to murder General Richardson and everyone on that mission. You stopped him. You saved my country from a traitor wearing its uniform. On behalf of my family, I'm sorry, and thank you." Eleanor placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Your father was a sick man who broke under torture. War does that sometimes. Forgive him, son. I did a long time ago." The third twist came when the honor guard prepared to fold the flag. Instead of presenting it to General Richardson's widow, a dignified woman who had known about Ellie for years and approved every detail, the sergeant major marched straight to Eleanor and placed the triangle of stars in her hands. "From the general, ma'am," he whispered. His final order. Tucked inside was a note in Harry's shaking handwriting. "Ellie, took me 80 years, but here's that dance. Save the last one for me upstairs. Love always, Harry." As taps echoed across the hills and the volley of rifles cracked like breaking hearts, Eleanor Hayes stood tall in her simple black dress and accepted the salute of an entire nation. The little girl from Iowa, who had once been told women couldn't serve in combat, had just become the most honored soldier in America. And somewhere, in whatever place waits beyond bugles and white stones, a 4-star general finally got his dance. If this story of quiet courage, unbreakable promises, and long overdue justice moved you the way it moved me, do me a favor. Drop a comment below and tell me what part of this great country you're watching from right now. Are you in Texas? California? New York? A small town in Ohio like where Eleanor grew up? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. God bless our veterans. God bless their families. And God bless America.